Good afternoon. Great to have you here today. Just with a quick show of hands, financial inclusion, is that relevant in Austria? Okay, half of you, a little bit more, fantastic. Me and my panelists believe it's actually quite essential also here and around the globe. So there's not one country that shouldn't discuss the topic of financial inclusion. That's what we're here for. We're going to especially look at how technology can foster inclusion, especially financial inclusion. And I have two fantastic speakers with me here today for the fireside chat. I would like to invite them one by one, because we have so many. And I'm going to start out with the country manager of MasterCard Austria with previous experience at McKinsey Company and the AXA Group in Germany. He oversees business development in data and services area for Austria and other European markets. Please welcome Michael Broenner. There you are. Hi. And the second lovely co-speaker today on the fireside chat is an entrepreneur and investment executive who founded and leads New Paradigm Ventures. He's an international impact which is an international impact advisory firm. He serves on several boards, lectures in universities in Austria and Portugal, and studied business and economics and political economy in Vienna, Strasbourg, and the London School of Economics. So please welcome Nikolaus Hutter. Go ahead, take a seat. Whichever you prefer, left or right. It's a political choice. Okay, left it is. Fantastic. So welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I love that we have this variety in the room. We have like this big corporate and we have the speedy speedboat next to it. And I think that's great to kind of just kick it off with what is financial inclusion? You know, you both have, I think, a very interesting lens on the topics. So I would like to just open it up with a more global approach. So what is financial inclusion for you? Michael, let's start.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, financial inclusion obviously is a broad term. Looking at the lens or through the lenses of a payment company such as MasterCard, obviously we take more of a focus on payment, making sure to include all the consumers to payment-related solutions from access to cash, which surprisingly might be a problem sometimes, but also then inclusion and access to modern payment solutions, be it at a point of sale all the way to e-commerce, for the consumers. And then as we also operate a two-sided business model, working with consumers on the one hand, but also working with merchant partners and their banks, it also includes, from our perspective, providing access and supporting all kind of merchants, from the big corporate to oftentimes also small, even social or entrepreneurs in need to enable them to also receive payments in a efficient and in good way.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I think you can also explain financial inclusion by kind of saying what is financial exclusion, right? So Nikolaus, if I may give it on to you, what is financial inclusion? Maybe what is it not? So where were people excluded?
Okay. So in an economy or in a system where we have markets for almost anything, just like Michael said, both on the business side in terms of investment and factor markets for inputs and materials and talent, capital, etc. That these markets function well is a question of financial systems. And the same applies, of course, on consumer markets. So if you like, you can look at finance and financial systems, payments, all of that, storing cash, having access to cash, etc., as a basic service. Very much like energy, water, and things like education, healthcare, etc. So financial exclusion means not having access to that. So imagine having no running water, no electricity in your house, having no access or no affordable access to schools, to healthcare, and that's the same if you think about stripping away the whole financial layer.
And now if you think about how especially the past years kind of rattled the economy all over the globe, but especially also in Austria, would you say that financial inclusion is now also a more pressing topic here? Or are we, when we're looking at the trend, rather everybody is more and more included?
Well, I think it still remains a topic of high relevance. I wouldn't say it's more or less pressing than it used to be. It may have changed. Several factors may have contributed to this. What we see, for example, looking at the Austrian market as something that also we as MasterCard are very much focusing on, is to make sure that also the rural areas of the country are financially included, for example, by access to cash, by also access to good merchant and commerce solutions, because obviously in bigger cities like Vienna, it's pretty much a given to have a supermarket within walking distances. The more you go into rural areas, this is not always the case, so also working with merchant partners to enabling these kind of things are parts of our inclusion agenda that we are driving. Maybe one element that is now more relevant than it used to be a decade ago is the whole topic around e-commerce. And there, again, financial inclusion plays a role because it's still a privileged, smaller elite that has perfect access to it, that if we look at payments, has credit cards, maybe uses PayPal, Klarna, all these digital payment solutions. But these are obviously typically the younger, more well-educated, more wealthy parts of the population. There's a big bunch of people that does not necessarily have this access. So including them, providing good solutions, how they can participate in the e-commerce, how they can have fast, convenient, and safe checkout solutions is also part of this mission for us that's maybe now more relevant than it used to be.
And can you tell us a bit on how you do that? Like especially how you're including the older generation into that funnel?
Yeah. Well, again, a broad variety of solutions. So if I start from the last point, the e-commerce, one thing that MasterCard did here in Austria is to move the Bancomat card, the debit card that every consumer gets with its bank account from the Maestro product that was the predecessor of the current card generation, which is called Debit MasterCard, and enabling this card for e-commerce payments, which sounds like a simple change, but indeed is a big measure of including especially these people that do not have credit cards and all these apps that I just mentioned. And we see this in the transaction values. This, for many people was providing access to e-commerce. But then you asked about the elderly. I take the liberty to also talk a little bit about more the rural population things. We do there is, for example, to partner actively with a lot of supermarkets in Austria to enable consumers to withdraw cash at a supermarket cashier if they purchase any given good in Ibilla, Hofer, or wherever. And this, especially in rural areas, provides, again, access to means of payment where, for example, banks are scaling down their branch network, and through these kind of things, we are making a contribution. A few examples on the cardholder side. There are other things that we are doing together with merchant partners from supermarkets all the way to, I mentioned, social merchants earlier on.
Fantastic, thank you. Maybe pass it on to Nikolaus. That's a topic that you're also very strongly working on, not necessarily only focused on Austria, but also in other countries and areas. Can you tell us a bit more how that topic would shift if you're now zooming into? I think we talked yesterday about Uganda, where you have great works and operations. So can you tell us a bit more how that topic is perceived there? What does it mean there?
Yeah. So what we do is we work with partners, NGOs, but also with startup entrepreneurs who have innovative solutions to address problems which are what we call the blind spots of markets, the people, places, and topics that markets neglect. And they neglect because in the shift towards an impact-driven economy, think about the SDGs, the old thinking, both in the real economy, industry and services, and then the financial economy do two things: mispricing risk and undervaluing opportunity. So the stuff that is in these blind spots of markets, the problems, they look very scary, even though they're not, or not more scary than the stuff that is in plain sight in markets, and they don't look very attractive, even though they are. So that's what we do. Now, how does that look like specifically? For instance, with our local partner in Uganda, we have prototypes of two things. One is an investment platform to finance early-stage funding towards entrepreneurs that come from very disadvantaged backgrounds. Think youth entrepreneurs from South Sudan in a refugee camp in North Uganda. It doesn't get more excluded than that. So no track record, no. Sometimes even they've been in refugee camps for 10 years. Sometimes no education, not even high school education, and nobody believes they can do anything. So our partner there has a kind of a program out of which emerge small ventures, and we saw that these ventures need funding, and there's no mechanism that actually works or can function. So we build one which is essentially a peer selection tool that you bring together a community of those entrepreneurs to decide among themselves in a facilitated process who among them should get the funding. So that's one thing where both mindset and, like I said, mispricing risk and undervaluing opportunity is something which is purely in our heads. But then there's also very engineering problems, from telecoms infrastructure and even payments. How do you get the cash there, even electronically, etc. Now, there's a lot of mobile payments, so that actually works. But if you look at the banking sector or even early stage venture funds, they can only write much bigger checks than these kind of ventures can absorb. So we're talking 5, 10, 15,000, which is way too small. And it's also too big for microfinance. So it's this classical pioneer's gap. So that's one. And one of the investments that we did there is actually a women refugee lending platform, which in the prototype had a 100% repayment rate. Now, if you ask anybody who is in SME lending here in Europe, like Hanno, the default rates are more in the high teens or low 20s, right? Like 15, 17, 20% of credit default on Austrian SMEs. So from a credit risk perspective, lending to refugee women in a North Ugandan refugee camp is actually a pretty attractive business.
But let me follow up on that, and that's going to be maybe a bit provocative, but on purpose. There are, so many topics that we can address, right, in the realms of SDGs. Why would you say is especially financial inclusion such an important topic, and that you want to, with all your passion, focus on, and maybe also get your attention of others to be focused on?
For two reasons, and I talked about these basic services. For me, the financial system is plumbing. Like I said, the water system and the energy system, the telecoms infrastructure, etc. So how often do you think about your sewage system and your water pipes? Not at all. At the same time, because money is so important, but as a political and a social construct, on the one hand, we don't pay enough attention to it to get the plumbing right, and on the other hand, we give too much attention to it to put it on a pedestal where it doesn't belong. So for me, solving finance in a way of giving it enough attention to get the plumbing right and get equal access to everybody is one thing, but also get it down from its pedestal of hunting the unicorn evaluations, etc., which is a vanity game, and really get it down to a tool that actually works. And then a lot of things actually can happen because it's like I said, is a basic service. No more, no less. And that's why I think financial inclusion, equal access to functioning financial services is really crucial for so many other things.
Absolutely agree. Michael, what would you say? Where do you put financial inclusion for you? What role are you playing in advocating for financial inclusion?
Well, I agree with Nikolaus on what he just said. The payment industry, or in general also the finance industry, is a player in helping people to have access to good solutions that matter, be it in the more developing countries of the world, basic human needs like water, like food, or in more developed markets like Austria, for example, making sure that we have an equal and a fair society. We are contributing on many different particular projects throughout the world. In Austria, from for example, working with vendors of a homeless magazine in Graz to help them receive payments on mobile phones, because we saw that very often if you get approached by somebody who's trying to sell you magazines for homeless people, they get the response, well, I don't have cash, I don't want to, I cannot pay, I don't want to deal with these people, I don't want to interact with them. So as a response to this, we partnered with Megaphone in Graz to enable and equip these guys to receive also card payments. A nice and small example from Austria. On a global scale, MasterCard is also doing a lot. We founded the Center for Inclusive Growth as a department within MasterCard to partner with with local entrepreneurs, bring in own brain power to help, especially in the developing world. MasterCard also, when we went public, when we had our IPO in 2011, the owners of MasterCard decided to fund the MasterCard Foundation, and 15% of the share capital went into this foundation that is now a shareholder, an owner of MasterCard, which makes this MasterCard Foundation one of the best endorsed foundations in the world. And obviously also this foundation is doing a lot in this space in a super long list of projects, especially looking into developing countries.
Fantastic. I think you both are doing incredible jobs to foster financial inclusion. And if you're looking at the next 10 years, let me conclude with the last question to you two. If we look at, let's say from today onwards to 2035, let's add another couple of years, what do you want to have changed by then? So how should the topic of financial inclusion, your work, how did it contribute over the next almost 15 years to the change of financial inclusion?
Well, like I said before, I would love money to be looked at as a tool and to be focused on being a functional tool. Think about it like information, right? If you like, the internet is how the free flow of information, and if we weren't online on mobile devices, etc., the world would be a lot more frictional. A lot of things would be a lot more cumbersome and less connected. And now, you know, free payments on that layer of the internet, online payments, like Michael was referring to, is like the economic layer of that. And I think we need to make that very frictionless, and that means also covering digital divides in order to empower financial inclusion. So as we are a information technologized society now globally, even in the last, I've never been to Uganda, let alone to these refugee camps. We've been working for 4 years all online on mobile phones, right? Including, you know, very intensive one-to-one coaching. So I would love the financial system to be as ubiquitously available and functioning as information is free-flowing on the internet, and that it is really easy to get access to it as much as it is easy to get access to information on a smartphone today.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Michael?
Fully agree. As you rightly said, money is a tool. The financial system is there to enable an efficient exchange of goods and services. We are trying as much as possible to make sure that nobody is left behind there, that everybody, especially for us here in Austria, has access to equal means of fast, secure, and safe payment, be it at the point of sale, be it in the e-commerce. And they're helping both consumers to do that, all consumers of all age groups, of all geographies, and all type of merchants, from the big corporates to the very small independent shop owners or individuals.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you two all the best to continuing the work on empowering more and giving more access to financial services to people around the globe. The topic is, as you can see, endless, and we'd love to continue the discussion, but the time is up. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your insights. And I think the two will be around to go into deeper discussions in the next break. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.